Doing? Welcome to this. Ahora, let's go again. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome to this webinar with BCM Globalis and DT Consulting. Is your company diverse enough? Thank you so much for being here, for joining us today to this set of webinars that we are creating to you from this network, BCM Globalis. And we are talking about a lot of things that companies have to learn to be successful in this very complex world. And one of those things that are very neat today is diversity, inclusion, belonging, equity. What are all these and how we apply them as leaders? But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Diego Tomasino. I'm an executive coach specialized in business diversity and founder of DT Consulting and CoachMap. I also an author. My book came out. Las empresas también tienen que salir del closet and the university out of the closet. Also, we have the English version here, no, the Ultimate Guide for Inclusivity in the Business. You can find it on Amazon. And I've been working a lot in Latin America and Europe talking about diversity because that's very personal to me. I came from the financial industry. I always say that I used to be an accountant, and I had to change my path here. Because when I moved from Argentina to Panama, when I was 23, I found a lot of barriers to get that gap, between my sexuality and my professional life. And that was very complicated for me, and I didn't want other people to go through that. Because many of us that have to work in some like hostile environments have to deal with this. No, and that's why I started working on activism in Latin America, and then I did some certificates on diversity and inclusion in Cornell, and that's where I am now. I'm creating this consulting firm and working with BCM to reach and take the power of diversity to your company and unleash the value of your people there. That's the most important thing, and we're going to talk about that in some minutes. But first, let's talk about what's diversity, no? And I always like to start with this quote of Berna Meyers. She's a VP of Netflix, and she created the first part of this quote, and then, the social media start changing that a little bit, but it's the essence of what we're talking today here. So diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. Equity is that they remember to put your favorite song. And belonging is dancing like no one is looking at you. So many times we don't think about this, no, and we don't think of things that we have in common with our team. Generally, the human beings are always trying to find those things in which like we don't agree, all those differences. And we talk about that. We build about from that instead of building from what we have in common. There are many things that we can create if we start talking with our people, with our partners, with our neighbors. If we just talk and learn about their lives and their unique experiences they have. So, in order to talk about this and be able to bring all these conversations and bring the best of everyone in your company is to lead those conversations, is to lead the teams, is to lead everyone. So what does it mean to be an inclusive leader? What's all this about inclusive leadership? And as I'm a coach also, I love to do questions, like these powerful questions and easy questions, all those questions that generally we don't want to ask ourselves, because that means that we have to think a lot. And generally we just want to resolve things, get the objectives, set goals, and go for that. But we never take time to think in ourselves on who we are as leaders, as persons. So this is the first question I want to leave you, and also that you can think about. Who are you as a leader? Who am I as a leader? What defines my leadership? What are all those things that make that make you unique as leader? Why people are going to follow you instead of following someone else? And the third question is how I feel about managing diversity in my team. And I want to make like a stop here because lately diversity has been like connected and being used in the media and everywhere as something bad or something that we don't want to talk about because it's too different from what we know. But let's stop and think, okay, diversity is everything. And how do I feel about managing different people? And this starts with the self-awareness. It's this ability to take an honest look at your life without attachment to being right or wrong, according to the before. And it's this point of like, okay, thinking that, okay, what are you doing, who you are, And this takes time. This takes patience and takes the effort to stop and think about you and the others around you. And of course, about all the diverse talents that are in your company. And when we talk diverse talents, that people is the most important asset that companies have right now. We have two big assets: people and technology or information. And people are the ones who have the information and the talents to use that technology. So we have to think about age, gender, sexual orientation, ethnocultural origin, functional diversity and abilities, and neurodiversity. So these are only some of the spectrum on diversity in companies and the people that are around us. So how we manage all this is what we have to learn and what we're going to see in this webinar. So, but first things first, what's diversity? So diversity refers to who is in your organization, who is who. It's a representation of age and all the characteristics and experiences that the people have there, like gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, socioeconomic level, among others. It's all these things, these puzzle pieces that are spread around your company. And inclusion is how all those things get together. It's how people feel in your organization. And it indicates the degree to which each collaborator feels valued, respected, accepted, and motivated to participate within the organization. So we always hear about, let's do diversity. We are a very diverse company. Okay, but is that enough? We have to talk about inclusion. We have to talk about belonging. That's the important thing. But we also have the E, this equity or equality. And sometimes we use it as like they are the same, and they are not. Because equity is promoting justice, impartiality, and fairness with the procedures, processes, or distribution of resources. And equality is treating everyone the same. No? So that's we have to talk about equity, because equality suppose that everyone are the same. And we have just seen that everyone is different. So we have to give each person all the resources, all the things that they need to thrive and be successful in your company. I just want to wait here and tell you that you can leave all your comments here in the chat on the Q&A questions, and we are going to go to answer all those questions at the end of the webinar. So managing diversity in a complex world. Today it's not the same as 20 years ago, 100 years ago. Today we are living in this VUCA context. This our surroundings, our business things, business environment are volatile, complex, uncertain, ambiguous, and we have to deal with this in a very fast moment. We also have to deal with the different types of jobs that we have today, especially after the pandemic. How we talk about with freelance people, with work at home, with remote jobs, with hybrid jobs. So how we lead and manage all these teams, especially that we have this hybrid. It's like, okay, we go to the office, we don't go to the office. We have people in the same city, in different cities, in different time zones. So What do you do? What have to learn to lead those teams? Also, all this AI thing that's going on, that we have to have this like critical thinking of what we have and what we get from ChatGPT. Generally, or other like similar tools, I've heard that many people just, copy paste whatever answer they find there, and they do not like wait for a second to say, okay, is it real? What are the sources of this? Of course, it's a tool and we have to use it, but we have to incorporate all that critical thinking in our leadership too. We have to lead with new generations that are very aware of themselves, about the world, about what they want to do, about sustainability, So we don't want to find cities like Porto Seguro this year in Brazil, like flooded, completely flooded because of the climate change. So we have to lead with that, with all these different things that go around us. And that's very, very important, to be a company that learns, to learn, to adapt, and also to create these leader coaches. So for that, these are like 5 things that organization that goes changing and adapting to this environment needs to have. To start with why. Why are we doing this? What are we doing and how are we doing? But why? What's the purpose of your company, of your thing as a leader, of your purpose? We have to find the purpose of the company. Be a role model. A leader needs to lead by doing also. Also has to generate expertise across the organization, break down the barriers or break down silos, as we also said that. And of course, team working. We have to think about the team. And to do this, you have to think of diversity and inclusion again. And we can find a lot of benefits to start an environment with DEI. Because, for example, this is just some of the good things of inclusion for companies. It creates equal opportunities and fair treatment. It maintains and promotes a healthy workplace environment, generate attraction and retention of talent, greater diversity of thought and leadership techniques, assist in resolving conflicts on DEI. It creates workplaces where everyone can reach their full potential. It promotes the creation of ERGs, employee resources groups, how to increase productivity, loyalty, and morale of each one there, inspire other companies. It's aligned to world trends like SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and improves the corporate image. These things may sound very like intangible, but are the most important things. To create these spaces, also create this like culture of innovation, to be more adapted to the changes that goes around us. And this also has an economic impact on your company. And we know that always want to talk about the economic thing, the return of investment that we do on diversity and inclusion. This is the result of some surveys that been done some years ago, but we have to find like new data now. We are creating more data now. But it says that companies that have DEI policies increase the cash flow like twice to other companies that do not in a 3-year period. And in smaller companies, it's like 13 times more about that. And why is this? Because first, you have twice opportunities to be ready to change, to adapt to change. And this leads to innovation. So, and why is that? Because you have different point of views. You have different people working there. Because if you work with always the same people that have the same background as you, you will always think the same. You will always find the same solution to the same problem, instead of finding different solutions to the opportunities that the market has. Also, you can find like different markets or niche that are from diverse community, that the LGBT plus community, that for women, for elder people that wants to invest in your company or the products or services that your company offers. Also, all these companies that have the DEI programs generally have like coaching or mentoring tools or programs within the company. And this helps to promote leaders, to create better leaders, and also to improve all the staff performance in general. But There's one key in all this, and what I said before, and it's the retention, here, the attraction and retention of talent. Because today, and this you can find everywhere, but how much does it cost to replace an employee in your company? It says that generally it's like 12 times, 12, like a full year of salary is the cost to replace one, in having into consideration determination to assign a temporal person doing the job, all the recruiting, all the interviews, all the tests that you have to do, all the process, the administrative process, all the trainings and that you offer to that person, and all the time that takes for that person to be 100% of the role. So if you say that, okay, you can find a better job there, yes, that's perfect. But how much that is going to cost you? It's going to cost you like a full salary for 1 year of that employee. So what's better? To try to retain that person, to create a healthy environment, or just letting them go and say, okay, do whatever you want. So this is also what we have to think. And creating all these policies also has a lot of benefits for the person there. You know, like saving energy, consuming, hiding sexual orientation or gender identity. I'm going to go there in a minute to talk about like a personal experience, because many people said that, okay, you know, your personal life doesn't have to do anything with your professional life. When you go to your work and when you connect to your laptop, you just work, you know, but no, that's not true. When you get to your job on a Monday, the first thing that anyone asks you there is, what do you do on the weekend? What do you do on the weekend? And for a person who has a same-sex partner and is not out of the closet, or the company is not a safe space to do that, that person has to start lying. They say, okay, yes, I stay home, or I went to somewhere with my friend, or with someone, not changing names and everything. And that's a lot of stress for people, because generally, especially LGBT persons, all this diversity is not easily seen in your company. You know, it goes within. It's our identity, our sexual orientation. So we have to be very aware of creating these safe spaces, because that person, instead of working like 100% there in your company, is going to be thinking, okay, what can I do so people don't see that I'm gay or lesbian or whatever. So all that energy is into hiding your true self, your authenticity. It even happened with like some small things like tattoos. Some companies have very strict policies against tattoos, and people are trying to, okay, you know, hiding their arms, or they cannot like pull their jackets, because if the company sees that, maybe they can lose their job. And this happened with a friend in an airline. So we have to think a lot of this safe space and all this, the energy that generally our team consumes into hiding that. So with that also comes a great productivity, you know, because we focus on the work and to be more productive. Also, it gives you more loyalty to organization, greater open-mindedness, the sense of belonging, or as we say in Spanish, ponerse la camiseta, no, wear your T-shirt of the company. And, you know, this comes with a positive and proactive attitude and an optimal state of well-being. And you know now that all these mental health issues are super important for people, for companies, and for society in general. So let's think of all these things in order when we start thinking about the diversity and inclusion policies that we have. So we have to learn, and we have to take into consideration that talking about diversity and inclusion is not only just talking about women in the workplace, of the LGBT plus community, or with people with disabilities. It's a bigger thing. It's so much bigger. We have to talk about intersectionality. You know, we have to start thinking about the privileges that we have and the bias that we have. But we have to start thinking of people as a whole. We have to take into consideration the age, the gender, the legal status, nationality, race, ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation, social status, linguistic diversity. My accent, for example, it's always something when I give like webinars in English. And I love that because it's something that makes me unique at that thing. But for example, we have to think about this. And I also believe that companies sometimes like have a different approach here because we keep departmentalize we like give like yes like making departments of this, you know, talking about the LGBT people, the black people, the Asian people. And come on, you can have that intersectionality with someone. You can have a black person who is gay and who has a disability. And what do you do with that? What do you do if you have a person like that in your team? So start thinking on diversity as a whole, as all the things that we talked at the beginning. So wait a second now, like let's relax a little bit and let's like ponder in your leadership role. Are you aware of the importance of the DEI policies? Do you know the policies in your organization? Because this sometimes happen also. It's like many companies, especially multinational companies, have these DI policies or diversity policies, and in a multinational level, you know, and headquarters. But people who work there in like, you know, I don't know, Panama, Costa Rica, Nigeria, they don't know that the company has those policies because we do not communicate them or we don't see them apply. And this always is seen when we try to, as I like to say, tropicalize those policies. And this happens a lot in Latin America because big companies have there, but when we bring the policies, you know, we have some leaders that are very like strict on this, or they don't want to talk about this. They are very machista, patriarchy, religious. There's so many barriers in Latin America and in some other continents like Africa or Asia to talk about this. So think about the policies that your company has. And then do you feel like in your team or with other leaders in your organization, can you talk or address these things like naturally? Or you have to stop and say, okay, wait, today we're talking about diversity and inclusion. The thing that the end thing of all this is that you can talk about diversity in the most natural way in your company. You know, as you talk like as a soccer match here. But unfortunately, it's not like that. So what does a leader coach have to do to be a leader and a coach at the same time? You know, first, as I said before, lead by the example, to encourage the creative participation of your team through their support on diversity, establish direct and trustworthy bonds with their team, to believe in your members of your team and the potential of each of your talent. You have to wait some minutes. You have to talk to your people, see what they can do, what they are good at, but you have to wait there and see. Also, you have to motivate and inspire members of your team permanently, on a daily basis here. You know, like talk the talk and walk the walk, something like that. And also seeks not only to develop practical skills, but also soft skills, promoting intellectual stimulation. And maybe the results can be seen in a longer term, but they have a deeper effects on the growth of the people's organization. And finally, to apply the inclusive routine. The inclusive routine is something that I created in my book and come out. It's like 5 steps that you can do like on a daily basis to bring all these DEI issues to your team, to your company. But these 5 steps, all of them start with listening what's going around you. What's going on in my company? What are people talking about? And I always say, for example, this example on a university, that they called me there to talk about DEI, of course, and LGBTQ diversity there. And when I was doing the webinar, I was seeing on the chat that many of the students Start talking about bullying. What happened if they hit me here? What happened with the bullying, with the insults, with this? But and it took only one person who wrote that on the chat that like 50 more students talk about that. So when I ended the webinar, I was talking to the dean, and she said, "No, it was super great. We are very committed with LGBT community and everything." But I say, "Okay, wait, that's perfect, and I really appreciate that, and you are doing quite an effort here. But you have an issue that you have to address first before talking about LGBT. You have to talk about bullying, and that's something that they weren't. Maybe they didn't want to see because they were doing like, okay, we are talking about women empowerment, LGBT, but you're not talking the main issue that you have to talk. So start listening what your people, what your team are telling you, and also communicate every day. I always say that it's better to give more communication than less communication. And unfortunately, companies tends to not communicate very well. So first, you have to identify issues that affect your diverse talents. And this goes from recruiting, from communication, from marketing, for everything. Are people being seen in your company? How are you representing your teams in your website, for example, or in your communications? Do you show like diverse talents there, or you just show like white men, for example, in all your communications? This is something that you have to talk about. Also, the trainings. Now we're talking about that later, but you have to review. The second point is to review and update all the policies and benefits of the organization. We are talking here about leaves, and for example, we are talking about like private insurance. We are talking about health insurance. We're doing with paternity leaves, and many things there that sometimes they apply to some of your talents, but not to all of them. And always remember that you as a company have the power to negotiate with some other vendors, for example, health insurance. And this is a very interesting case in Chile, a very big company, over like 10,000 employees, that they have like two trans person there that they want to like do the transition and start like harmonizing and everything. And the insurance company said that they cannot pay that was not in the policy, and etc. etc. So the company say, okay, you don't want to like treat these two employees of 10,000. I'm gonna take my 10,000 employees to another insurance company that do cover that thing. And of course, the insurance company pay the treatment to these trans persons. So that's the power that you have to change the reality of many of your people there. Also review your trainings covering diversity issues, and try not doing only on special dates, the Women's Day, LGBT month, Black History Month. Try doing that like all year long in different dates. That's part of growing as a company on these matters. The fourth step is to ensure the privacy of your people. And finally, is to keep empowering new diversity leaders through executive coaching. And from here in BCM and DT, we can help you doing that with all your leaders. So another question, were you aware of these points when working with your diverse team? Which one catches your attention the most? So I know maybe it's a lot of information, but it's something that, okay, what I want is when you leave this webinar to keep thinking a little bit of, okay, are we doing this in our company? Do we have policies? Do we have benefits? Who is the one responsible of that? Do we go with HR? Do we go with marketing? Do we have a diverse manager in our company? Or we don't have anyone? So that's something important. How do we start doing this? So what are the actions do you apply in your day-to-day to develop inclusion in your team? And I'm gonna leave you like some steps here, like some things that are mostly on a daily basis, but it's mainly all these issues that affect the diverse talent is related to recruiting, to the benefits and license, to the ERGs, to use of the inclusive language. And please don't hate for just forsake the inclusive language. Inclusive language is not trying to change the language. It's being that everyone is being represented that. And inclusive language is not only the written one, is also what you show in your images. And that's the example that I said before about what are you showing in your website. So also another example, one company in Costa Rica once said that they wanted to recruit more Black people because Costa Rica has a lot of Black people there, but in a company of 300 employees, they didn't have like any Black person there. And it just took me 1 minute to enter the website and see that among all images that they have, there was no single picture of a Black person. So how me or as a Black person want to work there for you if I don't see myself represented there? So that's also inclusive language. And the last thing is also to promote the inclusion of trans people in your companies and doing alliances with some other organizations or foundations in your country or your city. So all this is always talking about, again, being authentic as a leader, bringing your true self to your company, because it's the only way that people trust you. So check your authenticity constantly on an everyday basis. And these are some questions that you can do and you can ask yourself every day. So first, again, awareness. What's the first step to highlight the factors that make you unique? Why are you different from other leaders in your company? Again, we start with self-awareness. Then, how different is your professional personality from the one you show with your family and friends? And if there's a difference there, what do you get on maximizing that? Is there any reward? It's because you don't want to show that, because you don't feel it's important. So another question is, what prevents you from doing that? Are you afraid of bringing your true self? And why? That the company doesn't allow you to be 100% yourself, to wear your tattoos, to wear your pride flag? What's going on there? And how comfortable do you feel in this situation? Because sometimes you can change that situation by talking with the C-level, or with human resources or with someone. But there's some companies that they are not open to this. So can we change the situation? Can we adapt? And if we adapt, is that sustainable? Or like in a year or 2 years, you're gonna break? So remember this, hiding your true self can sometimes help solve short-term problems. However, it puts an artificial limit on trust and therefore the ability to lead. So bring your true self. People want to see you. They want to lead you, not someone else, not a shadow of what you can be. So focus always on your soft skills. Bring your active listening. Learn to manage emotions. Bring your empathy to your team. And be authentic. Bring yourself 100% there. Be present. People are going to love that. I can assure you that. And you're going to make an enormous change here. And of course, if we want to just to go finishing all this, it's like always have to go here with an action plan. So what do we do next? And maybe you are like familiarized with the SMART goals. All your goals, both professional or in the company, have to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and on a time frame. But start bringing all these DEI characteristics to those goals to make them sustainable. So here's an example of what you can do. Just to take notes on your goals, both personal, professional, and for your team. And here is like an example on one of these. Give me just 1 second. For example, on a personal level, I want to get more involved with the LGBT plus community in Miami as an ally. By the end of 2023, I'm going to research at least 4 organizations to learn more about their job and try to make at least a donation of $100 to help their cause. So I'm measuring it, I'm having a time frame, it's very specific and everything. Okay, now let's take that to a professional level. So I want to increase the amount of participation of our employees in social causes by the end of 2024. In order to do this, we are going to contact the Miami Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, review our DEI policies and benefits, and have at least 3 DEI trainings in the year. And now, let's bring that to your team in order to create and be able to do that professional goal. By the second term of 2024, we're going to hold at least 2 trainings on DEI while performing some role playing on situations that our clients and employees may face. We are also launching the first anonymous service to learn about the diversity of our workforce and implementing the use of pronouns in their emails and platforms. So this is something that you can do right now. And if you don't have anything in your company, you don't have any DEI policies, just print a paper that says, here we don't discriminate anyone by anything. That's the first step, and that's free. So that's the first thing to create a very sustainable and amicable place for everyone. So, and also we have to have this social consciousness, because in many places, in many countries, there's still a lot of like setbacks against diversity. Not only on the LGBT plus community, we have setbacks with racism, with gender, with the patriarchy, many things there. And we have to know this, that companies have become agents of change. So now they have a moral obligation to cover injustices in those countries in which social rights are yet to be conquered. So remember this. For example, I always say here in Panama, that where I'm right now at this moment, it's like we have many multinational companies being here. And Panama has very few rights for the LGBT plus community. But companies are giving that. For example, here the egalitarian marriage is not permitted, but companies are giving marriage leaves to same-sex couples if they want to go and get married in some other country. Because if not, they were taking like illness leave, vacation leaves. So that's when you start seeing that, okay, well, why are you taking a sick leave if you're not sick? You're just getting married, So that's the power that companies have to create these safe spaces for everyone. Also, like the quotas, I know it's always a issue, sensitive issue, but many countries have quotas for people with disabilities, 2%, 5%. Also, we have quotas with trans people. Also, many of the Fortune 500 companies are like analyzed on how diverse are the C-level. So diversity is not something that you just hear and you do a checklist. You have to think about that. You have to work on a daily basis on this. And by that, you can use the inclusive routine and start like seeing and listening what other companies around you are doing relating these topics. So I don't know if you have any questions related to this, but I think we have covered many things on how you can lead with purpose, with and with passion, for all these for your team here. I have a question here from Paula from Spain, from BCM. Hi, Paula. In a multinational company, how can we implement DEI policies, considering that there are some countries with a different cultural perspective and levels of openness toward these initiatives? Okay, so that's a very interesting thing. I talk about that a little bit, but I think that companies have to push a little bit, because I've seen many times that they bring people, or they want to create this DEI department, and they bring special people to do that, for example, in Latin America or Africa. But when they are there, when they're in place, they cannot do anything, because the organizational culture of the country is not ready for that. So we always have to start like working step by step. We have to know and accept that every time we talk about diversity and inclusion, it's not an easy thing. It implies that we have to have our difficult conversations every day, every day. And, it's like, okay, where do we start? So let's start like creating consciousness on that discriminate is bad. Let's start with that. And then we keep like growing from there. And we go like getting alliances and bring your allies to this. Especially, I work more with the LGBT plus community, but companies are doing a lot of efforts to bring allies in that cause because we need allies. Women also need men as allies in the gender fight to gender same rights. So step by step, but it's not easy. But sometimes also when you work on the leaders, the local leaders with executive coaching and everything, you can start like changing all those limiting beliefs that are very related to their culture. And step by step, you go changing that with empathy, with active listening, with all these tools that generally leaders don't have. And we have to work on that. So that's where we start with executive coaching. And sometimes, if all the efforts of the company are not successful, sometimes you have to change the person. Unfortunately, you have to do that. But it takes a lot of time to realize that you have to change someone or some people or some departments if you want to thrive and you want to like really invest in the DI things for your company. So I hope that answer the questions. And we have another question here. Is on how can companies measure the success of their diversity, equity, and inclusion to ensure real progress? Okay, love that. Okay, there are many tools to measure that, starting from the diversity map that generally we have, and also there are like some companies, especially in the US and in Europe, that measure how diverse is your C-level, and start from that. Also, you have like, for example, how many policies, benefits, how are your programs in order to protect the privacy of the people, how you make the denounces, all these, like when you have some harassment or discrimination cases, what do you do with that in your company? Also, you can set some goals on your company. For example, many companies, in order to get the SDGs to the 2030 agenda of the UN, they say, okay, we want to have like 50-50 in gender. We have to have 50% women, 50% men. So that's a goal, and you have to work to that goal. And that doesn't mean that you have to like terminate everyone in order to get that. No, it's like that's very softly. Every time like a person leaves the company, you start replacing that person for someone, for example, for a woman there, or for a trans person there. So that's very slowly. It's not a step that you can do like every day. Like you can have many, many things. Also, in my book and in my website, I have like some issues on some things on how you can measure that. But feel free to contact us, and we can do from ECM and DT also this consulting thing that you can do in order to check your company, how the company is now related to these DEI topics. I don't know if we have another question here around. But I think that you're welcome. But I think that we have covered many, many, many things. And I just want to leave again with this like slide of the one more here. Now remember this. I think this is the best thing that you can take from this webinar. So to be more aware of your surroundings. What's going on? What can you do? What affect your people? What affect your teams? How do you make people be successful in your company? Review the policies and benefits, review your trainings, review the privacy, and review all the training, leadership trainings that you have in your company right now. And as I said before, you can always contact me, Paula, and all the team of VCM and DT Consulting in order to bring all talks, workshops, consulting thing to your company and help you measure the DEI here to create these goals and to do like motivational talks on the things. Also like curate testimonials from your own people in your company. And you can get also my book on Amazon. It's everywhere. And I don't know, thank you so much. If you don't have questions, I think we can finish the webinar here. Thank you so much, BCM and Paula, for this opportunity. And let's see soon again in some other webinar. Have a very good day and see you.